Tonight, under the quiet shimmer of stars and the whispering hush of winter winds, we journey back tens of thousands of years. Imagine a time when the world was raw and untamed, where vast landscapes lay buried beneath relentless snow, and survival was a constant, delicate balance. In the biting cold of prehistoric winters, early humans faced blizzards that could swallow entire valleys in white silence. Yet, in the midst of this frozen challenge, ingenuity and resilience sparked the beginnings of shelter, community, and hope. Before we step further into this ancient world, take a moment to settle in. Perhaps you're watching from the US, Europe, Canada, or elsewhere. Whether it's the soft twilight of evening or the quiet early hours of morning. Wherever you are, allow yourself to sink comfortably into your chair or bed. Take a slow breath and prepare for a story that will guide you gently through time. If you enjoy this journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, sharing where and when you're watching. It brings a warmth across the ages to know we're connected through story. Now, with your senses ready to wander through snow, wind, and flickering firelight, let us begin. The wind cut across the frozen plains like a sharp blade, carrying with it a scent of ice and stone. The ground was a patchwork of frost-cracked earth and snowdrifts, shimmering under the dim light of a low winter sun. A small band of humans moved carefully, their heavy hides brushing together with each cautious step. Their breath rose in clouds curling into the icy air, and their eyes, sharp and wary, scanned the horizon for both prey and danger. Among them was a man named Torg, whose hands, calloused and steady, carried the knowledge of seasons survived. He paused, pressing a palm against the snow to feel its density, judging whether it would support a makeshift shelter. Around him, others gathered branches, stones, and animal hides, their movements deliberate and quiet, as if the snow itself demanded respect. The blizzard was always patient, creeping over hills and valleys, and it could arrive in silence, wrapping the world in a suffocating blanket of white. But these early humans had begun to understand its rhythms, reading the clouds, the smell of frost, and the subtle crunch of ice underfoot. Tonight, Torg would lead them to a small hollow beside a ridge, where the wind's fury would be softened by the curve of the land. Here they would attempt to craft a refuge, a fragile but vital sanctuary against the storm's might. Their hands worked with careful precision, layering branches like the ribs of a living creature, draping hides over them to trap the warmth of their bodies. Each placement was a conversation with the winter itself, a negotiation between human perseverance and nature's indifference. The air was filled with the scent of wood smoke, faint but promising, as a small fire sputtered in the center of their gathering. As the shadows lengthened and the first hints of night fell over the snow, Torg looked at the small shelter taking shape. It was modest, yet sturdy, a testament to patience, skill, and quiet determination. The wind whistled outside, but inside, the murmurs of his people, the gentle crackle of fire, and the warmth of shared effort wove a cocoon of safety. In this simple act of building, they had not just constructed a shelter, they had carved a space for hope to endure. As darkness settled over the frozen landscape, the wind outside grew restless, tugging at the shelter's edges, but the small band of humans moved with a rhythm of quiet purpose. Inside their hastily built refuge, the scent of smoke mingled with the earthy aroma of animal hides, creating a cocoon of warmth and familiarity. Torg crouched by the fire, arranging small stones around its base to contain the heat, while others added layers of moss and grass beneath their feet, softening the frozen ground. The firelight flickered across their faces, highlighting sharp cheekbones, determined eyes, and the fine lines etched by years of cold winters. Each movement was deliberate, slow, and deliberate. There was no room for haste when survival demanded care. Torg could feel the tension in the group, a quiet anticipation as they listened to the blizzard building its rhythm outside. It was a sound both terrifying and mesmerizing, the whisper of wind through trees, the distant groan of shifting ice, and the soft, relentless patter of snowflakes against the ridge. Torg's thoughts wandered to the lessons of past winters, the times when a poorly built shelter had been swept away by storms, leaving families huddled in the open, teeth chattering, hearts racing. Tonight, he would not allow that fear to dictate their fate. Every branch placed, every hide stretched tight, was a declaration they would endure together. A young woman named Lyra, her hair dusted with frost, gently laid a thick animal hide over the entrance. It sagged under the weight, but Torg and another man steadied it, tucking it carefully to block the wind. The fabric felt cold against his hands, but it also carried a subtle warmth, a reminder of the creature that had given its life to protect theirs. The shelter was beginning to breathe, to become more than sticks and hides. It was alive with human intention, a fragile heartbeat against the vast, indifferent winter. As they settled onto the moss and grass bedding, the conversation dwindled into murmurs. Lyra hummed a low, rhythmic tune, soft enough to blend with the howl of the wind outside, while the children pressed close to the warmth of the fire. Torg watched them, feeling a mix of exhaustion and quiet pride. Outside, the blizzard's fury grew, but inside there was safety, warmth, and a shared resilience that no storm could touch. In that moment, time seemed to stretch, measured not by hours, but by the steady breathing of the group, the crackle of fire, and the lull of snow pressing against the earth. Here, in the middle of an unforgiving winter, they had created more than shelter. They had carved a space for life, hope, and quiet courage. The night deepened, and the blizzard outside intensified, hammering the ridge with icy fingers that rattled against the shelter's walls. Inside, however, a hush fell over the small group, broken only by the gentle crackle of the fire and the occasional shifting of moss under settling bodies. The warmth of the flames seemed almost sacred, a fragile thread of life in a world dominated by frost. Torg leaned back against a bundled hide, feeling its comforting weight press against him, and allowed his eyes to follow the dancing shadows along the shelter walls. Every sound outside, the whistle of wind through cracks, the soft thump of snow piling against the ridge, was interpreted with care. They had learned that the blizzard was not merely a hazard, it was a living force, patient and unyielding, testing their skill, their patience, and their unity. The children, wide-eyed and curious despite the cold, clutched each other and whispered questions that Lyra answered in soothing tones. Her voice was calm, a steady counterpoint to the chaos beyond the shelter's fragile frame. Torg's mind drifted to the work of earlier hours, the way each branch had been chosen for strength, the way each hide had been stretched tight to resist the wind. Building a shelter was more than a physical task. It was a meditation, a dialogue with the winter itself. Every placement of wood or stone was a negotiation with the elements, a promise that they would not simply endure the storm but survive it with dignity. The fire's glow highlighted the textures around them, the rough grain of wooden supports, the intricate patterns of frost clinging to animal hides, the uneven surface of the moss and grass beneath them. Torg's fingers absently traced these details, grounding him in the present, while his mind remembered winters past, both harsh and merciful. In those recollections, he drew strength, the knowledge that humans could adapt, could create warmth and refuge where none seemed possible, could turn fear into careful, deliberate action. Outside, the storm howled and groaned like a distant beast, yet the shelter held firm. Inside there was laughter, low and muffled, as a child pressed a small, frost-dusted hand against the fire, feeling its heat seep into cold fingers. The warmth spread slowly, gently, and with it came a deep sense of calm. Here, in this modest refuge of sticks, hides, and firelight, they were not merely surviving, they were living. And as the wind raged beyond their fragile walls, Torg allowed himself a moment of quiet gratitude, knowing that each small act of preparation, each layer of protection, had made the difference between fear and comfort, despair and hope. The hours drifted by in a gentle, hypnotic rhythm, measured by the flicker of flames and the occasional whisper of wind through the shelter's edges. Outside, the blizzard had grown restless, surging over the ridge in powerful waves of snow, but inside the fire's warmth wrapped the humans like a soft, protective cloak. Torg shifted slightly, feeling the weight of the cold in his bones, yet comforted by the steady breathing of those around him and the soft crackle that punctuated the otherwise quiet night. Lyra moved slowly along the shelter's interior, adjusting hides where the wind had pressed against them, and tucking in the children more securely. Each movement was careful, almost ritualistic, a dance honed over countless winters, guided by the instinctive knowledge that small adjustments now could mean the difference between comfort and suffering. The air was thick with the scent of smoke, the musk of hides, and the faint, earthy aroma of damp moss, creating a sensory cocoon that both grounded and soothed the group. Torg's eyes wandered to the entrance, where a thin layer of frost had begun to form along the edges of the hide flap. He imagined the wind outside, cruel and untamed, sweeping across the plains, bending trees, and piling snow into drifts taller than a man. The storm was relentless, but their shelter, though modest, was holding, its very presence a quiet triumph. He traced the structure in his mind, remembering each branch, each stone, each careful knot, and felt a deep, patient satisfaction. This was not just survival, it was creation, ingenuity wrought from necessity, and it filled him with a quiet pride. The children huddled near the fire, their soft murmurs blending with the crackling flames, and Torg allowed himself to smile at their small, brave faces. Even in the heart of the storm, life continued. Fragile, yes, but resilient. He recalled stories passed down through murmurs and gestures, tales of winters harsher than this one, of nights spent in the open when no shelter could be found. Those stories had taught him patience, attentiveness, and respect for the land, lessons he now passed on silently to the younger generation through example. Time seemed to slow, marked only by the steady rhythm of breathing, the flickering firelight, and the faint moan of wind outside. Each moment was intimate, almost sacred, a pause in the relentless march of winter, where humanity and nature coexisted in delicate balance. Torg felt the profound comfort of this balance, a gentle reminder that even in the harshest conditions, ingenuity, care, and unity could carve out a space for warmth, hope, and life itself. The first hints of pre-dawn light crept along the horizon, a pale, cold glow that seeped through the edges of the hide shelter. Inside, the fire had dimmed to a gentle ember, casting a soft amber light that painted the walls in long, flickering shadows. The blizzard outside had not relented. It continued its relentless rhythm, pressing against the shelter with icy insistence. Yet within, there was a profound stillness, a sense of fragile security born of careful planning and patient effort. Torg rose slowly, muscles stiff from the long night, and stretched against the comforting weight of the hides. The children stirred, rubbing their eyes and murmuring in sleepy voices, while Lyra moved quietly among them, checking that everyone remained warm and protected. The shelter, though small, felt alive with human presence. The scent of damp moss mingled with smoke, and the subtle warmth of shared bodies radiated through the tight space. Outside, the world was transformed by the storm. Snow drifts rose like soft hills, and every tree and rock was veiled in white. The wind sang across the ridge, a haunting melody of ice and cold, but the humans inside remained insulated, their senses attuned to the storm, yet undaunted by it. Torg examined the structure, noting the strength of the supports, the tightness of the hides, and the clever layering that kept the worst of the wind at bay. Every choice from the previous night revealed its worth now, a quiet testament to experience and ingenuity. Lyra brought a small bundle of dried roots and berries, offering a modest breakfast that warmed both stomachs and spirits. Each bite was savoured slowly, the taste earthy and slightly sweet, a small luxury in the heart of winter. The children listened intently as Torg spoke in low tones about the importance of observation, patience, and cooperation. "The storm tests us," he said, "but it cannot break what we build together." His words, calm and measured, seemed to carry a warmth that rivaled the fire. As the light strengthened, shadows softened, and the snow outside reflected a pale, crystalline glow, Torg felt a profound connection to the world around him. The blizzard was powerful, but it was also predictable in its patterns. By reading the land, by respecting the elements, by working together, humans could create sanctuaries of warmth and life. In that moment, the shelter was more than sticks and hides. It was a quiet triumph of thought, effort, and care. The pale morning light deepened, spilling softly through the edges of the shelter, and for the first time that day the wind's howl seemed slightly softened, as if the storm itself had grown tired. Inside, the group stirred more fully, stretching limbs and shifting carefully across the moss-lined floor. The warmth of bodies and fire created a gentle cocoon, an oasis of life and comfort against the cold that pressed relentlessly outside. Torg stepped toward the shelter's entrance, brushing a layer of frost from the hide flap. He peeked out, surveying the transformed landscape. Snow sculpted into ridges and valleys, trees bowed under thick layers of ice, and the distant plain shimmering in muted whites and blues. The world was both beautiful and intimidating, a frozen expanse that demanded respect and vigilance. He inhaled the crisp air, tasting its sharpness on his tongue, and felt a quiet thrill of connection to the land, a sense that survival was not merely endurance, but an intimate dialogue with nature. Inside, Lyra encouraged the children to explore their small space, teaching them to layer hides more securely or to tend the embers gently. Every action, however minor, was a lesson in patience and attention, the slow honing of skills that would one day keep them alive. The children's small hands, learning to adjust sticks and moss, seemed to mimic the care Torg and Lyra had shown the night before. Each movement was deliberate, mindful, almost meditative, filling the shelter with a rhythm both soothing and purposeful. Torg returned to the fire, adding a few carefully gathered sticks to maintain a gentle warmth. The flames licked upward, casting shadows that danced along the walls of hide, each flicker creating the illusion of motion within the stillness. He closed his eyes briefly, feeling the heat seep into his chilled bones, the soft crackle and whisper of fire weaving a comforting song. Outside, the blizzard continued, but here, inside this modest refuge, there was calm, measured, deliberate, and enduring. By mid-morning, the shelter had become a sanctuary not just from the storm, but from the vast uncertainty of the frozen world. Every detail, stones carefully positioned around the fire, moss and grass cushioning the floor, hides stretched and tucked, was a small triumph of foresight and skill. In the quiet intimacy of this space, Torg felt a profound sense of continuity. The knowledge of past winters, the careful guidance of elders, the curiosity and resilience of children, all converging into a single, steady heartbeat of survival. By late morning, the storm had reached its peak intensity, and the blizzard's roar had become a constant, almost tangible presence. The shelter's walls shuddered occasionally under the wind's pressure, but each creak and groan was a reminder of the human's careful labor and ingenuity. Torg crouched near the fire, his hands outstretched toward the warmth, feeling its heat radiate and seep through the layers of his furs. Each breath rose in delicate clouds, mingling with the smoke and creating a heady, earthy aroma that filled the shelter. Outside, the world was a blur of white. Snowflakes whipped in chaotic patterns, striking the ridge with a hiss and bouncing off hidden rocks. The landscape, normally familiar, had transformed into an unrecognizable expanse, a living canvas of swirling frost and ice. The children pressed close to the fire, their wide eyes reflecting both awe and trepidation. Lyra's voice was steady and gentle as she reassured them, guiding small hands to mimic her careful movements, teaching them the art of observation, patience, and care in the frozen wilderness. Torg shifted his attention to reinforcing the shelter. He adjusted a supporting branch, pressing it firmly into the snow to ensure it would not give way under the storm's weight. Each touch was careful and deliberate, almost reverent. The shelter was more than a construction, it was a living entity, a shield against the winter's fury, and every movement mattered. The smell of pine and sap from the wood mingled with the smoke, creating a subtle, comforting fragrance that reminded them of forested valleys beyond the storm. As the hours stretched, the humans inside settled into a rhythm of quiet activity. Some rearranged the bedding to trap more warmth, others fed the fire, and the children practiced stacking small stones near the hearth, learning the delicate balance of construction and patience. The shelter hummed with a gentle energy, the harmony of human effort echoing softly against the blizzard's relentless song. In this cocoon, fear had softened into respect, uncertainty into careful preparation, and every heartbeat seemed to synchronize with the slow, deliberate cadence of survival. Tor glanced at the small group, feeling a deep, unspoken pride. Outside, the storm raged, indifferent and powerful, yet within this simple refuge of hides, moss, and firelight, life continued. It was fragile, yes, but it endured. And in that endurance lay a quiet, profound hope. The knowledge that humans could carve warmth, comfort, and safety even from the heart of winter itself. As afternoon settled into the frozen landscape, the shelter took on a warm, amber glow, the firelight painting the walls with flickering patterns that danced like gentle spirits. The blizzard outside had become a rhythmic force, rising and falling in intensity, pushing against the ridge with relentless persistence. Yet within, there was a sense of timeless stillness, a slow breathing of human life that moved in quiet harmony with the storm. Torg leaned against the shelter's inner frame, feeling the sturdiness of the sticks beneath his hands. Each branch, each stone, each carefully tucked hide was a testament to the hours of patience and observation that had preceded this moment. The scent of smoke mixed with the earthy musk of moss and furs, creating a grounding, soothing atmosphere. Every inhale reminded him of survival not as a struggle, but as a series of deliberate, thoughtful choices made with care and intention. The children, small and bundled, had grown more confident within the confines of their temporary refuge. They practiced moving moss into small bundles to pad the sleeping areas and experimented with stacking stones to contain embers safely. Lyra watched over them with a soft, approving smile, offering gentle guidance and praise. Their small successes, repeated slowly and with attention, seemed to echo a rhythm of hope and resilience throughout the shelter. Torg's gaze drifted to the narrow flap of the entrance, watching as snow whirled in twisted patterns, sparkling like millions of tiny crystals in the pale light. Each gust was a reminder of the storm's power, yet he felt no panic, only a deep respect and understanding. The blizzard was a teacher, testing their ingenuity, patience, and foresight. And in their shelter, built with careful hands and steady minds, they had passed its first test. As the afternoon waned, the group settled again near the fire. Torg allowed himself a rare moment of reflection, tracing the journey that had brought them to this point. The careful selection of branches, the thoughtful layering of moss, the precise stretching of hides. It was a slow, deliberate dance with winter itself, each movement contributing to a sanctuary that balanced fragility with resilience. In the warmth of this small refuge, life felt intimate and precious, a gentle rhythm set against the white roar of the blizzard beyond. The light outside softened as the sun dipped lower, casting long silvery shadows across the snow-laden landscape. The blizzard, though still fierce, seemed to have grown less chaotic, as if it had settled into a steady, relentless pulse. Inside the shelter, the fire flickered warmly, sending a comforting glow across the faces of Torg and his companions. The air was heavy with the mingling scents of smoke, moss, and the subtle tang of frost clinging to their hides, a fragrant reminder of the world beyond, wild and untamed, yet momentarily held at bay. Torg adjusted a branch that had shifted slightly under the pressure of snow outside, pressing it firmly into place. Each movement was slow, deliberate, a quiet meditation in motion. He admired the cleverness of their construction, the way every branch supported another, the way moss and grass created a layer of insulation that seemed almost magical against the storm's bite. Every detail mattered, and every small adjustment felt like a conversation with the winter itself. Lyra crouched beside the children, guiding them as they carefully pressed more moss into corners, reinforcing the floor against the cold seeping from beneath. Their small hands were clumsy but determined, and each careful placement brought a sense of accomplishment that rippled through the shelter like a gentle tide. The children's laughter, soft and muffled, blended with the crackle of the fire and the wind's distant wail, creating a lullaby of resilience and warmth. Torg's gaze drifted to the shelter's entrance flap, watching snow swirl in twisted patterns as gusts struck the ridge. The storm was unrelenting, but within this cocoon of carefully chosen branches, stretched hides and layered moss, there was an undeniable sense of control, of safety. The shelter was more than survival. It was a testament to human ingenuity, to foresight, patience, and the quiet courage that allowed life to persist even in the harshest conditions. As evening approached, the fire's glow grew more vital, casting deep amber tones across the interior. The group settled into its embrace, the warmth a balm to chilled bodies and tired minds. Torg allowed himself a deep breath, feeling the steady rhythm of life within the walls, the quiet heartbeats of those around him, and the comforting sense that despite the storm, they had carved a sanctuary from the winter's grasp, a fragile, beautiful proof of human resilience. Night descended slowly, the last vestiges of sunlight fading into a pale, icy blue. Outside, the blizzard whispered and roared in equal measure, snow whipping against the ridge with an unyielding persistence. Inside the shelter, however, a calm warmth persisted, emanating from the carefully tended fire that cast long, gentle shadows across walls of hides and branches. The air was dense with the earthy scent of moss and furs, and the subtle, comforting tang of smoke hung like a soft blanket over the small band of humans. Torg sat near the fire, carefully watching the embers, feeling their heat seep into his fingers. Each ember seemed alive, glowing with a delicate persistence that mirrored the shelter itself. He observed the intricate layers of moss and grass beneath them, knowing that every detail mattered. The padding beneath bodies trapped warmth, the hides blocked the wind, and the structure of the sticks allowed it to flex slightly under pressure without collapsing. It was an interplay of materials, intention, and patience, a quiet, ongoing conversation with the winter outside. The children, now calm and subdued, huddled near the firelight. Their faces were serene, lit by the flickering glow, eyes heavy with sleep, but still attentive to the soft murmurs of their elders. Lyra moved among them with tender care, adjusting blankets and encouraging small, measured movements. Even in the heart of the storm there was a rhythm, a gentle routine that brought comfort and reassurance to the small group. Torg allowed his gaze to drift outward through the thin gaps of the shelter. Snow swirled in intricate spirals, catching the faint light of distant stars, creating a mesmerizing, otherworldly spectacle. The world beyond was harsh, white, and indifferent, yet here, inside this modest haven of sticks, hides, and firelight, life endured. Each breath, Each carefully placed stone, each layer of insulation was a victory against the cold, a proof that human foresight and care could create warmth and safety where none existed naturally. As the night deepened, a quiet contentment settled over the group. The wind howled outside, but inside there was the soft murmur of breathing, the gentle warmth of shared bodies, and the rhythmic, comforting crackle of fire. In this fragile refuge, Torg felt the profound truth of their survival, that even in the most relentless winter, patience, care, and ingenuity could carve out spaces of hope and safety, a testament to the enduring spirit of humankind. The night stretched on, deep and endless, with the storm outside thundering softly against the ridge in rhythmic waves. Inside the shelter, shadows danced along the walls as the firelight flickered, creating a moving tapestry of light and dark. The group had settled into a quiet routine, small, deliberate movements, the occasional adjustment of moss or hides, and the soft, comforting murmur of voices as Torg and Lyra ensured that everyone remained warm and secure. Torg's hands traced the rough texture of the branches that supported the shelter, feeling the subtle give of each one as the wind pressed from the outside. It was a delicate balance. The right placement of each branch could make the difference between protection and exposure. He inhaled the mingling scents of smoke, damp moss and furs, letting them ground him in the present moment. Every sound, the crackle of the fire, the sigh of the wind, the faint rustle of the children, became a soothing rhythm, a lullaby against the cold that threatened to intrude. Outside, snow tumbled in intricate spirals, sculpting the landscape into ridges and hollows. The blizzard was relentless, yet, from the safety of their shelter, it seemed almost beautiful, a vast, swirling pattern of white that transformed the world into something mysterious and quiet. Lyra whispered to the children about the shapes the wind created, turning each drift and swirl into a story, a lesson in observation, patience, and imagination. Even in the harshest conditions, wonder could find its place. Torg reflected on the fragility and strength of their refuge. The shelter was modest, sticks, hides, moss, but it carried an immense power, the power to protect, to nurture, and to sustain life. Every layer of material was also a layer of care, a testament to foresight and perseverance. In this intimate cocoon, the storm beyond felt distant, like a great, untouchable force acknowledged but no longer feared. As the hours passed, the group began to drift towards sleep. Bodies pressed close together, the fire embers glowing gently, the wind singing a low, distant lullaby. Within the shelter there was warmth, comfort, and an unspoken sense of triumph. They had survived the first night, built a sanctuary, and discovered, in the simplest of ways, that human ingenuity and careful attention could carve out safety even in the heart of a merciless winter. The quiet of early morning crept over the ridge like a soft veil, pale light filtering through the frost-dusted hide flaps. The blizzard's roar had softened into a distant, steady whisper, though snow still swept across the frozen plains in endless swirls. Inside the shelter, a gentle warmth lingered, clinging to moss and furs, to fire-heated stones, and to the bodies huddled close together. It was a warmth earned through care, skill, and the quiet patience of the night's labor. Torg moved slowly, careful not to disturb the children still sleeping near the fire. His hands brushed against the soft moss beneath him, and he could feel the insulation it provided, the way it trapped warmth and created a buffer against the frozen earth. He inhaled deeply, taking in the mingled scents of smoke, wet moss, and the faint tang of frost lingering on hides, a grounding, almost meditative fragrance that reminded him of the intimacy of their fragile sanctuary. Outside, snow danced in fractured patterns, sculpting miniature peaks and valleys over the ridges and rocks. Each drift seemed deliberate, a reminder of the winter's quiet authority. Torg paused at the shelter's entrance, watching the world in contemplative silence. The storm had been fierce, yet here, in this modest refuge of sticks, hides, and layered moss, life endured. Each branch carefully placed and weighted, each hide stretched and tucked. Each was a testament to foresight, ingenuity, and the patient rhythm of survival. Lyra quietly stirred the children, encouraging them to sit and press their small hands near the fire to absorb its warmth. She spoke softly of the importance of observation and steady care, demonstrating how to tuck a loose corner of hide or press moss into a gap in the floor. The children mimicked her movements slowly and attentively, their small, careful motions a reflection of the patience that Torg and Lyra had woven into the shelter's very structure. As the day progressed, Torg allowed himself to appreciate the beauty of their small, enclosed world. The blizzard might rage beyond, relentless and indifferent, but within these walls a delicate balance of warmth, ingenuity, and care had been established. It was a sanctuary not just of survival, but of presence, mindfulness, and quiet triumph. In the heart of a merciless winter, humans had carved a space for life, for comfort, and for hope, proof that resilience could flourish even in the harshest conditions. By mid-morning, the shelter had become a sanctuary of movement and muted sound. The fire glowed gently, its heat seeping into the stone and moss beneath, radiating through the hides and offering a reassuring pulse of warmth. Torg moved among the small group, checking the structure for weak points, pressing sticks firmly into the snow and adjusting the edges of the hides to block even the slightest draft. Each action was deliberate, slow, a careful negotiation with the lingering chill that sought entry. Outside, the blizzard's remnants swirled in pale eddies, snow catching the faint morning light like tiny diamonds. The ridge seemed both familiar and alien, reshaped by the storm into curves and hollows, a frozen landscape of quiet grandeur. Torg watched the patterns, noting where snow had drifted against natural barriers, imagining how future shelters could take advantage of the landscape's contours. Every detail of observation was a lesson, every careful measurement of drift a preparation for the next challenge winter might bring. The children had grown bolder, exploring small sections of the interior, learning to move moss and adjust hides with careful guidance from Lyra. Their soft laughter mixed with the crackle of the fire, blending into a gentle rhythm that contrasted with the harsh wind beyond the shelter. Torg smiled at the quiet determination in their eyes. Even in the face of relentless winter, curiosity and learning flourished. Torg paused near the fire, feeling the warmth seep slowly into his chilled bones. He allowed himself to appreciate the delicate balance they had created, the clever arrangement of sticks to bear weight, the layering of moss and grass for insulation, the strategic placement of hides to block wind. Each element was modest on its own, but together they formed a refuge capable of sustaining life through the coldest, harshest conditions. As the day progressed, shadows lengthened within the shelter, and a comfortable silence settled over the group. Each breath, each small adjustment, each careful observation was part of a slow, enduring rhythm. Outside, the storm had receded, but the lessons of its presence remained. Humans could endure, adapt, and create warmth, safety, and comfort, even in a world dominated by ice and snow. Afternoon settled over the ridge with a muted, pale light, casting soft shadows that stretched across the interior of the shelter. The wind had calmed to a steady murmur, though the snow still swirled in graceful eddies across the frozen plains. Inside, the fire's glow warmed the space gently, illuminating the textures of rough wood, layered moss, and taut hides. The scent of smoke, mingled with earth and the faint tang of frost, created an atmosphere that was both grounding and soothing, a cocoon of life in the midst of winter's vast, indifferent power. Torg moved deliberately around the shelter, checking each supporting branch, pressing and adjusting where the snow's pressure had shifted them slightly. He ran his fingers along the rough bark, appreciating the strength hidden within the fragile exterior, marveling at how something so simple could bear the weight of survival. Every detail mattered: the precise angle of a stick, the overlap of a hide, the thickness of moss beneath a sleeping child's back. The shelter was a living mosaic of patience, skill, and care. Lyra attended to the children, teaching them how to carefully move embers to maintain the fire, and how to tuck moss into gaps along the edges. Each motion was slow, intentional, a quiet lesson in foresight and mindfulness. The children followed her instructions with focused determination, their small hands learning to work in harmony with their environment. The shelter itself seemed to hum with the energy of learning and shared effort, the warmth of human ingenuity radiating as tangibly as the fire. Torg paused near the entrance, peering through a thin crack in the hide. The snow had drifted into intricate shapes, sculpted by the wind, reflecting the dim light in glimmering patterns. The frozen world outside seemed harsh, yet mesmerizing, its beauty dangerous but undeniable. In contrast, the interior of the shelter was a space of calm, control, and quiet triumph. Each layer of moss, each carefully positioned stick, and each stretched hide had transformed a small, fragile structure into a sanctuary capable of withstanding nature's fury. As shadows deepened and the wind whispered along the ridge, Torg allowed himself a moment of stillness. The shelter was more than a refuge. It was a testament to patience, observation, and the gentle power of collaboration. Even in the heart of a merciless winter, life had found a rhythm here, a slow, soothing pulse of warmth, safety, and enduring hope. Evening approached quietly, painting the interior of the shelter with a soft, amber glow from the fire that crackled gently at its center. The wind outside had eased to a distant sigh, though snow still drifted lazily across the ridge, sparkling in the faint light. Inside, the warmth clung to every surface: stones, moss, hides, and seeped into bodies pressed close together, creating a comforting cocoon against the lingering chill. The air was thick with the earthy scent of moss and furs, mingling with the gentle tang of smoke, forming a soothing atmosphere that enveloped the small band of humans. Torg moved slowly, inspecting the structure for weaknesses. Every branch, every layer of moss, every hide was a crucial piece in a delicate balance. His hands brushed against the rough wood, feeling its strength, appreciating the careful thought that had gone into each placement. The shelter had transformed over the past day from a simple collection of materials into a living, breathing sanctuary. Every small detail was a reminder of foresight, skill, and the quiet patience that winter demanded. The children had grown comfortable within the shelter, moving carefully as they practiced, tending small tasks like adjusting moss layers or gently poking at embers to revive the fire. Lyra's voice was soft and steady as she guided them, her words calm and deliberate, blending seamlessly with the crackle of the flames. Their small hands moved with growing confidence, learning the rhythm of care and observation that Torg and Lyra had mastered. Torg paused near the entrance, watching the subtle dance of snow in the fading light. Outside, the world was a frozen expanse, indifferent and powerful, yet here, inside their modest construction, life persisted. The shelter was more than sticks, moss, and hides. It was proof of human ingenuity, a fragile fortress against the winter's relentless force. Each layer, each carefully executed action was a whisper of triumph, a quiet assertion that survival could be sculpted through patience and attention. As night settled fully, shadows deepened, firelight flickered, and a profound stillness embraced the shelter. Within these walls the cold had no dominion. Warmth, care, and human presence created a rhythm of life, slow and gentle, resilient against the storm. Torg allowed himself a deep, calm breath, feeling gratitude for the space they had carved, the security they had built, and the quiet courage that had brought them safely through another day of winter's embrace. Night deepened into a serene, icy quiet. The storm outside reduced to a soft whisper across the ridge. The snow, shaped into undulating drifts, glimmered faintly under the pale light of distant stars. Inside the shelter, warmth radiated from the fire, enveloping the small group like a protective blanket. The scent of smoke mingled with moss and hides, creating a calm, earthy fragrance that filled the senses and slowed the mind, inviting stillness and comfort. Torg leaned back against a sturdy branch, feeling its rough texture under his fingers. Every element of the shelter, branches, hides, moss, and stones, was carefully placed to work in harmony, a testament to human ingenuity against the harshest of elements. The children nestled close, their soft breathing steady, and Lyra moved among them quietly, adjusting blankets and repositioning moss to keep the chill at bay. Each action was measured, deliberate, a quiet affirmation that small, careful steps could shape comfort and safety. Outside, the wind hummed a low, steady song, brushing snow along the ridge and creating intricate patterns over rocks and hollowed earth. The blizzard had become a distant presence, its power acknowledged but no longer threatening within the walls of their shelter. Torg's gaze lingered on the entrance, tracing the movements of snow as it swirled in delicate spirals. The world beyond remained wild and beautiful, yet the interior was a haven of warmth, light, and quiet security. The fire crackled, sending gentle sparks upward and reflecting off the walls of hide. Torg reached out, feeling the heat seep into his chilled fingers, and allowed his mind to drift into reflection. He thought of past winters, of lessons learned from mistakes and successes alike, and felt the steady, reassuring pulse of life within the shelter. The rhythm of their movements, the steady glow of fire, and the soft murmur of breathing created a harmony that countered the storm's distant chaos. As the night deepened further, a profound sense of peace settled over the shelter. Each small act of care and foresight had culminated in this moment, a fragile, warm sanctuary amid a frozen world. Here life endured, slow and gentle, wrapped in the comforting cocoon of shared effort, warmth, and the quiet, enduring resilience of humans against the indifferent winter. The pre-dawn hours stretched long and quiet, the faint glow of early light barely brushing the snowy landscape outside. The blizzard had settled into a whisper, leaving the world cloaked in soft, rolling drifts. Inside the shelter, the warmth from the fire and layered hides was constant, a gentle pulse that held the cold at bay. The children slept close to Lyra, their tiny breaths rising in misty clouds, while Torg adjusted moss and grass beneath them, ensuring the floor remained insulated against the frozen earth. Each motion within the shelter was slow, deliberate, and measured. Torg's hands lingered over the rough bark of the support branches, feeling the subtle textures and imperfections that gave the structure both flexibility and strength. The hides stretched overhead were taut, blocking even the slightest drafts, while stones placed around the fire radiated gentle heat, softening the chill seeping from the frozen ground. Every element of the shelter had a purpose, and every action was a quiet conversation with winter's relentless rhythm. Outside, snow swirled in delicate, crystalline patterns, shaped by the lingering gusts that brushed the ridge. The landscape seemed transformed into a frozen ocean, hills and hollows forming waves and ripples in brilliant white. Torg observed in thoughtful silence, appreciating both the beauty and the danger of the world beyond the shelter. Nature was indifferent, yet within the walls of their refuge, humans had crafted an intimate, safe space, a small proof of resilience and careful planning. Lyra stirred the children gently, teaching them to move quietly and adjust their blankets without disturbing the warmth that surrounded them. Each gesture, no matter how small, was part of a larger lesson: patience, mindfulness, and the careful tending of life in the face of relentless winter. Their quiet laughter and whispers mingled with the faint crackle of embers, forming a soothing rhythm that harmonized with the whispering wind outside. As the first light of morning strengthened, Torg felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The shelter had endured the night, every layer of moss, every carefully placed branch, every stretched hide serving its purpose. Life persisted here, slow and steady, nurtured by human ingenuity, patience, and care. And in this quiet, intimate world, he understood again that even in the harshest winters, survival was not merely endurance. It was a gentle, deliberate dance with the forces of nature, and one that humans could meet with skill, hope, and resilience. Morning light grew stronger, diffused through the frosty hides like a soft, silver veil. The snow outside had settled into smooth, undulating drifts, glimmering faintly as the wind whispered along the ridge. Within the shelter, warmth radiated steadily from the fire and the insulated floor, blending with the faint, earthy scent of moss and the lingering aroma of smoke. Each breath drawn inside carried comfort, a stark contrast to the biting chill lingering beyond their fragile walls. Torg moved carefully, adjusting the placement of a stone near the hearth to ensure the fire's heat radiated evenly. The children watched attentively, learning that even the smallest adjustments could affect comfort and safety. Lyra guided their hands, teaching them how to gently press moss into gaps or smooth the grass beneath their bedding, emphasizing patience and the slow, deliberate tending of their environment. The shelter hummed with quiet activity, the rhythm of life unfolding at a soft, meditative pace. Outside, the wind had calmed to a steady whisper, tracing patterns across the snowy ridge. The landscape was transformed into a pristine expanse of white, delicate shadows forming over snowdrifts, frozen rocks, and the sparse, frost-laden trees. Torg's gaze lingered on the intricate patterns, noting where future shelters could benefit from natural barriers and sheltered hollows. Observation, he knew, was as crucial as any stick or hide. They were learning not only to survive the storm, but to understand the land itself. The children practiced moving small bundles of moss to reinforce the edges of their sleeping area. Their hands were careful but eager, guided by Lyra's calm instructions. Each successful placement brought smiles and quiet murmurs of satisfaction, a soft echo of the pride Torg felt in their ingenuity and curiosity. The shelter was more than a refuge. It was a classroom of life, resilience, and mindfulness, where each action, slow and thoughtful, contributed to the shared safety of the group. As the morning deepened, a profound sense of calm settled over the shelter. The storm outside, though ever present in memory, was no longer a threat felt directly. Within this cocoon of warmth, patience, and careful construction, life persisted. Every stick, every hide, every layer of moss was a testament to foresight, collaboration, and the enduring strength of humans to craft hope and comfort, even in the heart of winter's coldest embrace. By midday, the shelter had settled into a steady, gentle rhythm. The snow outside glimmered in the muted sunlight, reflecting pale blues and silvers, while the wind whispered softly along the ridge. Inside, the warmth radiating from the fire and insulated floor created a cocoon of comfort. Every surface, the moss underfoot, the hides overhead, the wooden supports, was imbued with human care, a quiet testimony to the patience and skill that had made this refuge possible. Torg moved among the group, inspecting the structure and making small adjustments where necessary. A branch had shifted slightly under the weight of accumulated snow, and he carefully repositioned it, pressing it firmly into the frozen earth. Each motion was deliberate, a slow acknowledgement that survival required both attention and respect for the fragile balance between nature and human ingenuity. The children, now fully awake, mimicked Torg and Lyra's careful movements, pressing moss into gaps along the edges of the shelter and gently adjusting the positioning of hides. Lyra's voice remained soft and steady, guiding them with patience, praising their careful work, and instilling in them the slow, deliberate practices of observation, care, and foresight. Their small hands, moving with growing confidence, echoed the rhythm of the shelter itself, reinforcing its walls and the lesson that even tiny efforts could have profound effects. Torg paused to observe the interplay of light and shadow within the space, the way firelight reflected on hides and moss, creating patterns that shifted and danced with each flicker of flame. The subtle crackle of embers was soothing, a companion to the quiet murmur of breathing and soft whispers. Even in the harshness of winter, there was comfort here and a deep sense of accomplishment. As the day wore on, a profound calm settled over the shelter. The blizzard was no longer a present threat, though its lessons lingered in memory and vigilance. Life continued, slow and deliberate, nurtured by warmth, careful preparation, and shared effort. In this modest refuge, humans had carved out not only safety, but a space of mindfulness, connection, and enduring hope amidst the frozen vastness. Afternoon light deepened, soft and muted, filtering through the edges of the hide walls and casting gentle shadows across the interior. The snow outside glimmered in pale blues and silvers. The wind reduced to a faint whisper over the ridge, shaping subtle patterns in the drifts. Inside, the shelter breathed with quiet life. The warmth of the fire and layered moss wrapped around each body, while the earthy scent of hides mingled with smoke, creating an atmosphere of calm and safety. Torg moved deliberately, inspecting every stick, every layer of moss, and every edge of the stretched hides. One small adjustment here, a shift of moss there, each act a careful negotiation with the surrounding cold. He marveled at the ingenuity of their construction, how the branches bore weight without cracking, how moss and grass insulated against the frozen ground, and how the hides, stretched and secured, formed a flexible barrier against the wind. Each element, simple in itself, combined into a sanctuary capable of holding life against winter's harshness. The children practiced small tasks, guided by Lyra's calm, instructive voice. They learned to press moss into corners, to adjust bedding, and to tend the embers with careful attention. Each successful movement brought small smiles and murmured pride. Within the shelter, the rhythm of effort, learning, and shared presence became a gentle meditation, a slow, soothing cadence that echoed the pulse of survival itself. Torg paused near the entrance, feeling the contrast between the icy, shifting world outside and the calm, deliberate interior. The storm had left traces, and the land remained indifferent and formidable. Yet here, life persisted. The shelter was a testament to observation, foresight, and human resilience, a place where warmth, care, and ingenuity converged to hold back the winter's bite. As evening approached, shadows lengthened, and the fire's glow deepened, bathing the shelter in amber tones. The group settled into a rhythm of quiet reflection and gentle activity, feeling the satisfaction of another day survived, another layer of skill and patience woven into their refuge. In this space, life endured, slow and deliberate, nurtured by the tender rhythm of warmth, attention, and shared effort against the vast, frozen world beyond. The late afternoon sun dipped lower, sending soft, silvery light across the snow outside, while the wind whispered faintly along the ridge. Inside the shelter, warmth wrapped around the small group like a familiar blanket, the fire radiating gentle heat into the moss-covered floor, and the furs stretched overhead. The smell of smoke, earthy moss, and worn hides blended into a calming scent that spoke of safety and careful preparation. Torg moved deliberately along the interior, checking each branch and adjusting moss layers to maintain insulation. He pressed his hands against the rough wood, feeling the strength it offered, and the subtle give that allowed the structure to flex under pressure. Every detail of the shelter, the placement of stones around the fire, the layered moss underfoot, the tautness of the hides, was part of a delicate balance between human effort and the winter's persistent chill. The children, now more confident in their movements, helped gently adjust blankets and tuck moss into corners. Lyra guided their small hands, speaking softly of patience and observation, teaching them that survival was a practice of mindfulness as much as strength. Each careful action echoed through the shelter, a rhythm of learning and care that harmonized with the slow crackle of embers and the distant whisper of the wind outside. Torg paused near the entrance, watching snow swirl in intricate patterns shaped by the ridge's contours. The frozen world outside remained formidable, yet inside their carefully constructed refuge, life endured. The shelter was more than a simple assembly of materials. It was a living testament to human ingenuity, patience, and resilience. Every stick, hide, and layer of moss was a silent proof of their capacity to create warmth, safety, and hope against the harshness of winter. As shadows deepened and the firelight glowed softly, a profound calm settled over the group. The storm's memory lingered, a reminder of the winter's power, yet here, in the cocoon of shared effort and careful construction, they were shielded. Life continued, slow, gentle, and deliberate, each heartbeat a quiet affirmation of resilience, ingenuity, and the enduring spirit of survival. Evening thickened into a soft twilight, the last hints of pale sunlight fading behind distant ridges. The wind outside had softened to a faint sigh, brushing snow across the frozen landscape in gentle spirals. Inside the shelter, warmth wrapped every body in a steady embrace, the fire glowing steadily, casting long, dancing shadows along the hides and moss-covered floor. The air carried the comforting, earthy scent of smoke and damp moss, a sensory reminder that life persisted here despite the relentless winter beyond. Torg moved slowly, inspecting the shelter's structure. Each branch, stone, and hide had a purpose, and the careful attention to detail ensured that even the slightest shift could be addressed before it became a problem. His fingers brushed along the rough textures of the sticks, appreciating their strength and flexibility, and he adjusted a few strands of moss along the edges to reinforce insulation. Each small, deliberate action was a quiet dialogue with the storm outside, a reminder that foresight and care could carve safety from the harshest conditions. The children were quietly engaged in small tasks, moving moss and adjusting their bedding under Lyra's gentle guidance. Their small hands learned to mimic the measured movements of their elders, discovering that even subtle actions could have profound effects. Lyra's soft voice guided their attention, teaching patience, mindfulness, and the rhythm of deliberate care, blending seamlessly with the crackling of the fire and the distant whisper of wind. Torg gazed through a small gap in the hide flap, watching the snow swirl in delicate, crystalline patterns. The world outside was a frozen sea, formidable and beautiful, yet within their small refuge, life endured, nurtured by warmth, preparation, and human ingenuity. The shelter, simple yet resilient, had become more than protection. It was a living testament to the quiet triumphs of attention, collaboration, and foresight. As night fully descended, the group settled into a gentle rhythm of rest and quiet vigilance. The fire's glow softened, the embers crackled with a soothing cadence, and the shelter hummed with the subtle energy of shared survival. In this intimate cocoon, life persisted slowly, deliberately, a quiet dance of warmth, patience, and enduring hope amidst the vast, frozen expanse outside. Night fully enveloped the ridge, and the world outside the shelter had become a quiet expanse of glimmering white. The wind had dwindled to occasional sighs, brushing the snow in soft, swirling patterns across the frozen plains. Inside, the fire burned steadily, its gentle glow illuminating the textures of moss, hides, and rough wood, and radiating warmth that seeped into every corner of the shelter. The air was heavy with the comforting sense of smoke, earth, and furs, a cocoon of life against the lingering chill. Torg moved carefully among the group, ensuring that the shelter maintained its integrity. He pressed the branches firmly into place, adjusted the moss beneath the children, and smoothed the edges of the hides to block any drafts. Every motion was slow, deliberate, and infused with awareness. He understood that the smallest oversight could invite discomfort or danger. Each adjustment was a silent conversation with the storm outside, a recognition of its power and a patient negotiation of its challenges. The children were quiet, nestled close to the fire, their eyes heavy with sleep, yet attentive to the soft, comforting presence of their elders. Lyra moved gently among them, whispering encouragement, demonstrating careful movements, and reinforcing lessons of patience and observation. Even in their sleep, the children absorbed the rhythm of care, learning that survival was as much about mindfulness and precision as it was about warmth and food. Through a small gap in the hide, Torg glimpsed the snow-laden world beyond, a frozen landscape of pale shadows and swirling frost. The blizzard had receded, leaving only traces of its power, but its lessons lingered. Every stick, every hide, every layer of moss in their shelter was proof of ingenuity, foresight, and human resilience. This fragile construction had become a sanctuary, a place where warmth and life could endure in the heart of a merciless winter. As the night deepened, a profound calm settled over the shelter. The fire crackled softly, shadows moved gently across the walls, and the small group breathed in unison, cocooned in warmth, security, and quiet triumph. Here, life continued slowly, deliberately, a gentle affirmation of human resilience, care, and the enduring spirit that could carve safety and hope from the coldest, harshest conditions. The first whispers of pre-dawn light began to filter through the edges of the hide, soft and silvery, heralding a new day. Outside, the snow lay smooth and undisturbed, glimmering faintly beneath the faint glow of the emerging sun. The wind had quieted to a gentle murmur, leaving only the soft, rhythmic whisper of snow sliding across the ridge. Inside, the shelter pulsed with warmth, the fire sending a gentle heat into the moss and stones beneath, wrapping each body in comforting steadiness. Torg moved slowly, checking the structure one last time before the children awoke fully. Every stick, every stone, every fold of hide had a purpose, and his careful hands ensured that the shelter remained strong and protective. The layered moss beneath the bedding cushioned against the chill of the earth, the stretched hides blocked drafts, and the fire radiated a steady glow. Each detail was a testament to foresight, patience, and the quiet ingenuity that had built their refuge. The children began to stir, their movements soft and careful. Lyra guided them gently, encouraging them to adjust moss layers and press blankets closer, teaching them that small, mindful actions could create warmth and safety. Their sleepy eyes reflected the firelight, wide with awe and curiosity as they observed the delicate balance of the shelter that held them safe. The shelter had become more than a protective space. It was a classroom of survival, a sanctuary of observation, patience, and shared care. Through a small opening in the hide, Torg watched the snow sparkle in intricate patterns, each flake shaped by wind and ridge alike. The world outside was formidable, vast, and unyielding, yet inside this modest haven, life thrived. The shelter was a quiet triumph of human skill and resilience, a fragile fortress carved from foresight, effort, and steady attention. Here, warmth and safety endured against the winter's relentlessness. As the morning deepened, the group settled into a calm rhythm, savoring the comfort of their refuge. The fire crackled softly, the shelter hummed with the subtle energy of life preserved, and a deep sense of quiet satisfaction enveloped Torg. In the heart of the frozen world, they had carved a space of security, warmth, and hope, a testament to the enduring strength of human ingenuity and care. The morning light grew warmer, spilling softly through the edges of the hide walls, casting gentle gold and amber tones across the interior of the shelter. The wind outside had calmed almost completely, leaving only the soft, occasional whisper of snow brushing the frozen ridges. Inside, the fire glowed steadily, radiating heat that seeped into every layer of moss, stone, and fur. The air was rich with the comforting sense of smoke and earth, creating a cocoon of calm, safety, and quiet vitality. Torg moved slowly among the group, inspecting the shelter with careful eyes. Every branch, stone, and stretch of hide was perfectly in place, a delicate balance of natural materials and human foresight. He pressed moss into small gaps and adjusted blankets beneath the children, feeling the warmth radiate through his fingers. Each action was deliberate, slow, and purposeful, a quiet affirmation that patience, attention, and careful planning could transform a fragile structure into a resilient sanctuary. The children moved quietly, guided by Lyra's soft instructions. They pressed moss into corners, tended small embers, and adjusted bedding, their small hands learning the rhythm of care and observation. Their quiet movements mirrored the slow, deliberate rhythm of life in the shelter, a rhythm that had become a comforting constant amid the harsh winter beyond. Lyra's voice, gentle and steady, reinforced each lesson. That survival required both mindfulness and cooperation, and that even the smallest actions could shape comfort and safety. Torg glanced through a small opening in the hide, observing the transformed landscape outside. The snow glimmered under the soft morning sun, sculpted into delicate ridges and patterns by the receding wind. The world beyond remained vast and indifferent, yet here, within the walls of their refuge, life endured. Every detail of the shelter, from the layered moss to the carefully placed sticks, was a testament to human resilience, ingenuity, and the quiet triumph of foresight and care. As the day progressed, a profound sense of peace settled over the shelter. The fire crackled softly, the children moved with growing confidence, and the wind whispered faintly outside. In this intimate haven, warmth, safety, and life persisted slowly and deliberately. Torg allowed himself a deep breath, feeling the quiet satisfaction of another night survived, another day begun, and the enduring knowledge that, even in the heart of winter's harshness, humans could build comfort, hope, and resilience with careful hands and patient hearts. As the afternoon sun shifted, casting a soft golden glow across the snow outside, the shelter hummed with quiet life. The children had grown confident in their small tasks, moving moss, adjusting bedding, and tending embers under Lyra's calm guidance. Their small hands moved carefully, each action deliberate, their faces lit by the flickering firelight, reflecting curiosity and pride. The rhythm inside the shelter was slow and steady, a gentle meditation of warmth, care, and mindful movement. Torg walked along the perimeter of their refuge, checking every branch and stone with practiced attention. The shelter, now solid and resilient, had endured the blizzard's fury and adapted to the frozen landscape. He pressed his fingers into the moss lining the floor, feeling its insulating thickness, and adjusted the hides stretched above to ensure the wind's whispers outside would not intrude. Each motion was careful, deliberate, almost reverent, a dialogue with nature, a negotiation between fragility and protection. Outside, the ridge glimmered under the soft light, snow sculpted into undulating patterns that seemed alive, shifting with the breeze. Torg admired the stark beauty of it, knowing the same wind that created these sculptures had the power to destroy without warning. Yet here, within their cocoon of sticks, moss and hides, life endured. The shelter was more than a structure. It was a testament to human ingenuity, patience, and resilience, each element placed with thought and care. Lyra guided the children in reinforcing the edges of their bedding and tidying the moss underfoot. Every small act of maintenance was a lesson in observation, mindfulness, and the quiet persistence required for survival. The shelter's interior was a sanctuary, alive with the rhythm of deliberate effort and shared warmth. The children's laughter, soft and subdued, blended with the fire's crackle and the faint sigh of wind outside, forming a gentle lullaby of resilience. As the day wore on, Torg paused near the entrance, watching snow drift in delicate spirals across the ridge. The storm had left its mark, shaping both the land and their experience. But within these walls, life continued in calm, deliberate harmony. The shelter was proof that even in the harshest winter, humans could create safety, warmth, and comfort through patience, care, and attentive effort. In this quiet moment, Torg felt the steady pulse of survival, slow, enduring, and profoundly comforting. Evening settled softly over the ridge, painting the snow outside in pale lavender and silver hues. The wind had quieted to a gentle murmur, brushing the frozen ground in delicate, curling patterns. Inside the shelter, warmth radiated from the fire, pooling across the moss-lined floor and the stretched hides above. The air was filled with the earthy scent of moss, the faint tang of smoke, and the comforting musk of furs, a cocoon of life in the heart of winter. Torg moved slowly, pressing moss into small gaps along the edges of the floor and checking the tension of the hides overhead. Every stick, every stone, every layer of insulation had a purpose, and his careful attention ensured the structure remained secure against the cold night outside. Each deliberate movement was a quiet meditation, a rhythm that mirrored the slow, steady pulse of life within the shelter. The children, now more comfortable and aware of their surroundings, practiced tending small embers under Lyra's watchful eye. Their hands were gentle, precise, and deliberate, learning that even small actions had a tangible effect on warmth and safety. Lyra spoke softly, her words blending with the fire's crackle, teaching mindfulness, observation, and the quiet art of survival. The shelter had become not just a refuge, but a space for learning, care, and shared rhythm. Through a narrow gap in the hide, Torg observed the snow outside, shaped into subtle ridges and drifts that glimmered faintly under the moon's emerging light. The world beyond remained vast, cold, and indifferent, yet inside this modest sanctuary, life thrived. Each carefully placed stick, stretched hide, and layered moss was proof of resilience, foresight, and human ingenuity. The shelter had transformed from a simple collection of materials into a living, breathing haven. As night deepened, the fire's glow softened, casting gentle shadows that danced slowly across the walls. The group settled into a calm rhythm of quiet rest, tending to each other and the fire with slow, mindful movements. Within this intimate space, warmth, safety, and life persisted deliberately and gently. Torg allowed himself a deep, contented breath, feeling the steady, comforting pulse of survival and the enduring strength of humans to create hope and sanctuary even in the coldest, harshest winter. Night deepened, settling over the ridge in quiet, luminous stillness. The snow outside shimmered under the pale glow of stars, sculpted into soft drifts and delicate ridges by the gentle remnants of the wind. Inside the shelter, the fire glowed steadily, its warmth seeping through the moss, stones, and hides to embrace every body within. The air carried the soothing sense of smoke, damp earth, and furs, a fragrant lullaby that spoke of safety, care, and survival. Torg moved with deliberate calm, checking the shelter's integrity. Every stick, every hide, and every layer of moss had been positioned with careful thought, and even the smallest adjustments mattered. He pressed moss into gaps, smoothed the edges of hides, and ensured the fire's heat was distributed evenly. Each motion was slow, meditative, almost ritualistic, a steady conversation with the winter outside, a gentle assertion of human presence and foresight against the harshness beyond. The children, now nestled close to Lyra and the fire, moved with quiet confidence, adjusting their bedding and gently tending to small embers. Lyra's soft, steady voice guided them, reminding them of patience, attention, and the quiet joy found in careful work. Their movements, though small, were significant, a testament to how careful observation, slow effort, and shared care could transform a cold, dangerous environment into a sanctuary. Through a narrow opening in the hide, Torg watched snow swirl in ethereal patterns, drifting in spirals and waves. The landscape was formidable and indifferent, yet within their shelter, life endured. The structure they had built was no longer simply a refuge. It had become a testament to resilience, ingenuity, and the slow, deliberate rhythm of survival. Each element, from moss to stick to hide, held life and warmth within its careful placement. As the night deepened further, shadows softened and firelight flickered across the walls, creating a gentle, immersive rhythm of warmth, comfort, and protection. The shelter pulsed with quiet life, each breath movement, and ember reinforcing the steady beat of survival. In this intimate, carefully crafted haven, humans had carved safety, warmth, and hope from the frozen wilderness, proving that even in the harshest conditions, patience, care, and ingenuity could create enduring sanctuary. The deepest hours of night stretched over the ridge, a velvet darkness sprinkled with faint starlight. Outside, the snow lay untouched, soft and brilliant, shaped into gentle drifts by the receding wind. Inside the shelter, warmth lingered in every corner, wrapping the group in a steady, comforting embrace. The fire glowed with a slow, measured rhythm, sending flickers of light across the moss, stones, and stretched hides, filling the space with a serene, protective glow. Torg moved slowly, ensuring the shelter remained secure. Each stick was checked, every layer of moss smoothed and pressed, the edges of hides adjusted to block even the slightest draft. Every motion was careful, deliberate, and mindful, a quiet, constant dialogue with the cold, formidable world outside. Each action reminded him that the smallest details could determine comfort, safety, and survival, and that patience and attentiveness were as vital as any tool or material. The children lay close to the fire, their breath steady, and occasionally shifted under Lyra's guidance to stay warm. Their small movements were careful and intentional, a gentle reflection of the rhythm that had been established in the shelter over days of quiet learning. Lyra's voice, soft and reassuring, whispered encouragement and instruction, teaching that survival was both an art and a practice, woven from small, consistent acts of care. Through a small gap in the hides, Torg glimpsed the snow swirling in faint, hypnotic patterns. The world outside was vast and indifferent, yet within their modest shelter, life flourished. Every stick, every stretch of hide, every layer of moss had been placed with thought and foresight, turning fragile materials into a sanctuary of warmth, security, and enduring hope. The shelter itself seemed alive, breathing in rhythm with the group, a testament to resilience, collaboration, and human ingenuity. As the night wore on, a gentle calm settled over the space. The fire crackled softly, shadows flickered like quiet companions, and the shelter hummed with the steady pulse of survival. In this carefully crafted haven, warmth and life persisted deliberately and slowly, a living proof that even in the heart of the harshest winter, humans could create safety, comfort, and hope through patience, care, and shared effort. The first faint light of dawn stretched across the horizon, soft and muted, brushing the snow-covered ridge with pale gold and silver. The wind outside had quieted to a gentle whisper, leaving the frozen landscape serene and still. Inside the shelter, warmth lingered in every corner, embracing the group in a gentle, steady pulse. The fire's glow bathed the moss, hides, and stones in soft light, a comforting reminder that life had endured another night in the heart of winter. Torg moved slowly, surveying the shelter one last time. Every branch, every stone, every carefully placed layer of moss was intact, testament to the care, patience, and ingenuity that had gone into its creation. The hides overhead blocked drafts perfectly, the moss beneath cushioned the floor, and the fire radiated steady warmth. Each detail was proof that even in the harshest conditions, careful planning and attentive effort could create sanctuary. The children, now fully awake, practiced their morning tasks with gentle confidence, pressing moss into gaps, adjusting blankets, and tending embers. Lyra's soft instructions guided them, blending mindfulness, observation, and the quiet rhythm of daily care into the slow pulse of life within the shelter. Their small hands, once tentative, now moved with deliberate awareness, understanding that survival was built from patience, shared effort, and thoughtful attention. Torg looked through a narrow opening in the hide, taking in the sparkling landscape outside. Snow rippled across the ridge, intricate and beautiful, a reminder of nature's power and indifference. Yet within their modest refuge, life persisted. The shelter, built from simple materials with deliberate care, had transformed into more than a structure. It was a testament to human resilience, ingenuity, and the quiet triumph of hope and preparation over the harshest of elements. As the day fully arrived, a profound sense of peace settled over the group. The fire crackled gently, shadows danced slowly across the walls, and the rhythm of life in the shelter continued, steady and calm. In this intimate, carefully crafted space, warmth, safety, and hope endured. Torg allowed himself a deep, contented breath, knowing that through patience, care, and foresight, humans had created a sanctuary from the cold, a place where survival, comfort, and resilience could thrive in harmony. Thank you for joining this journey into the heart of winter with our cavemen, witnessing how patience, care, and ingenuity transformed sticks, moss, and hides into a sanctuary of warmth and life. As you settle into your own space, allow the calm rhythm of their shelter, the fire's gentle crackle, the soft breath of snow outside, and the quiet presence of shared care to lull you into rest. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment, sharing where in the world you are watching and what time it is. Let this story remind you that even in the coldest, harshest conditions, life, hope, and resilience can flourish, slowly, gently, and steadily. The night is yours now. Rest deeply.